Hello and welcome to JubilAge, the podcast hosted by Chiarito. Carol, good to see you. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Bill. Good. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I'm well. I'm as well as I can be. Winter is not my best season. I'm not a big fan of winter, but I'm doing well and I can't complain. What are we talking about today?
Hey, another one of my friends that I ran across in my travels around the world that I seem to do, Michael Banner, is going to join us today, and he's going to talk a little bit about his history with doing reverse mortgages and how that fit into retirement and how it maybe has changed over the past couple of years. And then a few other things. Michael is awesome, and I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you right back. And you're more awesome. Yeah. So, the things you do in your travels and, all the events that you've done for seniors is so staggering. And, that's why you were on our show the first time, and so glad to be on your show and your podcast and to see you again.
Well, thanks. I'll send you your check. It'll be in the mail for all those nice words. Hey, tell us a little bit about you, Michael, and how you got into the reverse mortgage business and how that all started.
Well, I'm going to try and keep this to be a small story, but about 20 years ago, my favorite aunt, everybody has their favorite aunt who lives here in Florida, called me and said, Uncle Joel and I need a reverse mortgage. And keep in mind, at that time, 20 years ago, I was the president of a father and son mortgage company, FHA Direct. I knew my stuff, Carol. And I ignorantly said to my Aunt Iris, isn't that terrible mortgage, reverse mortgages, where the lender takes your house? And, well, I hope this doesn't get edited out, but she called me a bad Jewish name. It rhymes with truck and it starts with schmuck. And she said, you better do some research because you don't lose your house. And I went, oh, well, I did my research and I got Aunt Iris and Uncle Joel a reverse mortgage. And it's a good thing they were my relatives and loved me because I had no idea what I was doing. But we did the reverse mortgage and I got them a very sizable line of credit, and that made life better. But during the process, I said to them, I'm confused. You came down here, several years ago. Uncle Joel was a MetLife executive on a very nice pension. Uncle Joel had a nice Social Security, and Iris was a greatest generation mom. So she didn't work. She stayed home with the children. So her Social Security was very small, but life was good. They weren't rich, but life was good. Why do you need a reverse mortgage? And they really opened my eyes. They said, Mike, when we moved down here, our homeowners association was $30 a month. Now it's $150. Gas was 50 cents a gallon. Now it's $2.10. A gallon of milk was 80 cents. And Mike, no one expected this. And we're doing well. But if we don't die soon, we're going to run out of money. And it was amazing to me that two of my favorite greatest generation relatives who I love since I'm born had that cash flow problem, but still didn't open my eyes enough. And then this is the sad part of the story. 6 months later, Uncle Joel was killed by a drunk driver on Highway 595 on the other coast of Florida on Mother's Day. It was a very sad time for the family. And being the public speaker of the family, I'm always asked to speak at funerals. And I don't like that. I'm an emotional kind of guy. I tear up kind of easy. I'm secure enough to say that. But my father told me before he passed, it's an honor to be asked to just go do it. And of course, I always do. And I thought, a very touching speech about Uncle Joel. And at the end of everything, Aunt Iris came up to hug me. And she said, I expected her to give me a hug and say you did a good job. But instead, she hugged me and whispered in my ear, thank God we did the reverse mortgage, because Uncle Joel's pension ended with his death. That was a lifetime pension. So, of course, as you know, Carol, and Iris's Social Security in this great country was increased to Uncle Joel's.
Mm-hmm.
But if she had a mortgage payment, she never would have been able to keep the house. Plus, she had a line of credit in addition to that. And I will tell you, here we are, 20 years later, and Iris just celebrated her 92nd birthday, and she's still in that house.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's what changed my life. When she said to me, thank God we did this. And it's a good thing that Dad and I were majority stockholders of our mortgage company, because when we drove back to Clearwater, I said to everybody in the company, this company is making a 180-degree turn. We're not going to turn down regular mortgages, but all I want to do is reverse,
Wow.
because that's what the greatest generation needs right now. And that
Yeah.
was 20 years ago. Now, unfortunately, most of the greatest generation is gone. There's only a couple of 100,000 of them left. But the generations that follow, thanks to the crazy economic environment of this country, they need it even worse.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into reverse mortgages.
That's an amazing story. And I think that for our listeners who feel like you did when Aunt Iris first approached you of, oh, that crazy way of doing things, just explain, if you would, a little bit how a reverse mortgage works, and go ahead and explain it in the old way of it, how it used to really work. And then we can fast forward to how it's changed over the years.
Yeah. Well, no financial product ever has been surrounded by more misinformation or half-truths than a reverse mortgage. And at the same time I'm saying that, I'm going to say, because all the terrible things you hear about reverse mortgages used to be true. And a lot of reverse mortgage people get mad when I say that on a podcast or a television show or a radio show. But until about 15 years ago, the reverse mortgage was an overpriced product of last resort. There was very few protections in it for mom and dad, for the children, for the heirs. And that all started to change in 2009, where FHA, because the reverse mortgage is an FHA insured mortgage, realized that we were doing more reverse mortgages than in the history of reverse mortgages, ripped the product apart in 2009, put it back together, and made it safer. And then in 2013, they did the same thing, ripped it apart, put it together, and made it safer. And then in 2018, did the same thing. And the reverse mortgage of the last several years is touted by not just people like myself, but Nobel Prize winners in economics, best-selling economic authors, as one of the safest tools for a person 62 and above. I used to say seniors, but now that I'm above 62, I don't say that anymore. For people 62 and above to maintain or even increase their quality of life during retirement. And it's a mortgage. Our detractors may want to make it into something more complicated, but it is a mortgage with no prepayment penalty that every month gives the client options. And one of those options is not to make their principal and interest payment. They are not obligated to make a principal and interest payment for as long as one of them reside in the home. Now, they can make a payment. The bank will never turn down your money. This is America. They won't say, no, we don't want it. But most people choose the option of not making the payment. Now, where does that money go? It's America. It's not for free. That payment is deferred and added to your balance. It is your basic, good old American pay now or pay later equation. But now happens to be that time between 62 and 85 to 90 when we're not working. I'm still working, but a lot of people are retired on fixed income. And as they watch those prices at the supermarket go up, and their medical insurance go up, and every doctor's appointment and every other thing, they're on a fixed income. Now is the time that they need that equity. And now that it is such a safe program and the borrowers are protected and their heirs are protected, it's coming into its own. It's taken a while because when you have a bad reputation for 50 years, you don't lose that reputation, especially in this country, overnight. But it's coming into its own now.
Right. And I think that, one of my podcasts in the past, I talk about how everything is a bucket of money. And the way the reverse mortgage works is it takes your biggest asset, your home, whether you have a payment on it or don't have a payment on it, right? You can take that equity and you can go put that into a bucket that you can then draw from to use for stuff, anything that you want. Remodel the house, or go on a cruise, or long-term care costs, or new teeth, new hearing aids, new glasses,
Let's not
whatever
get into
you
teeth.
want.
My God.
But
Yeah,
the
that's
point
expensive.
is, I guess the thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand is they think about what you said earlier is how you can pay now or pay later. Well, your house is paying for you to have these luxuries now. And that's I used to jokingly say in some of my seminars is, do you want to live better while you're alive, or do you want your spouse to live better when you're gone? Because
or your children.
your children, right? And so I think that's the part that people miss. But also, if you could explain a little bit about how that bucket of money, that equity bucket that's given to you in a reverse mortgage, how that grows and how that side of the equation works.
Right. Well, you really explained it well. You hit the nail. You have your expertise and it always shines through. Financial planners have always said retirement is like a three-legged stool. And the three legs are Social Security, obviously, that everybody gets in this great country, a pension or retirement fund, which most big companies in this country did away with years ago. Not everybody has a pension. And of course, your savings, which is so hard to save in today's world. And now those same experts are saying there's a fourth leg to the stool, home equity. And you're right, our equity line that we give people, you can get a fixed rate reverse mortgage, or you can get an adjustable line of credit. Believe it or not, seniors are picking 95% of the time the adjustable line of credit. And why? Because the line of credit grows. Let's just say, let's pick a number that you get a $100,000 line of credit today for me. And rates are the same like they are for regular mortgages. That's another big change. Interest rates on a reverse mortgage used to be so much higher. Now they're about the same as a regular mortgage, so they're in the sixes. And let's say this year, out of that $100,000 line of credit, you needed to take about $10,000 of that, about $800 to $1,000 a month, along with your Social Security, to maintain your quality of life. And at the end of the year, there's still $90,000 sitting there in your line of credit. You're not being charged interest on it because you're not using it, but the unused balance every 12 months is increased automatically. No credit check, no how much money you're making, no questions whatsoever. On the 12-month anniversary, that $90,000 line of credit, if your interest rate is, let's say, 6%, is going to be increased by 1.5% of the balance that is remaining. So that $90,000 line of credit is going to go up approximately to $95,000. You just grew $5,000. And that's kind of amazing.
It is. And you might add, how is that $10,000 in your example, when you take that out, how is that taxed?
Well, that's a good thing too. it's not taxed because it's not income. It's equity in your home that you already paid taxes on. And there's no double taxation in this crazy country of ours, right? And that's fantastic. So, yes, this is borrowed money. I want to make that clear to your listeners. A lot of people, detractors go, oh, we hear that, those commercials. We hear Tom Selleck, doing those great commercials, and they are great commercials. I don't know how Tom Selleck has enough time to tout reverse mortgages and be the police commissioner of New York. I don't know how he does that, but he's incredible. As you can tell, Blue Bloods is one of my favorite programs. But it is a mortgage. You're going to pay it back, and you can pay it back while you're alive, or your estate or heirs can pay it back from the sale of your home, or if they want to own the home, from the equity in your home. It's very important to understand with the new reverse mortgage, although it's 15 years old, the new reverse mortgage, your heirs or your estate can never be liable for more than the house is worth. The days of a lender calling your son or your daughter and going, well, we're in a recession and the value of the home came down and mom and dad didn't make a payment for 20 years, so the payment kept going up. You're upside down $67,000. That's against the law now.
Mm-hmm.
The children are never have any liability for mom and dad's reverse mortgage.
Yeah. And I think that, when you, one of the fears, I guess, of a financial advisor in working with a reverse mortgage as part of that overall plan is what you just stated in regard to what happens in the passing and what happens to the kids, because, God love us all. We all want everything to go to our kids, right? But at the end of the day, what are they going to do when you pass away? Most of them are going to sell your house anyway. So whether you have a mortgage on it from the front side, a traditional mortgage,
Yeah,
or a traditional or a non-traditional reverse mortgage on the back side, it's the same exact thing. You're going to sell the house for, in your example, let's just say you sold the house for $300,000. There's that $90,000 bucket that we left because we took out the 10. And so they're going to sell the house for 300 minus the 90, just like a normal mortgage. Is that correct?
And if they didn't use the 90, the kids are getting the 90. It was never used.
That's right. Say that again.
Well, people, a lot of our detractors go, oh my God. And even some financial planners in the financial planning community, financial planners, have an obligation to pass on wealth to the next generation with as little consequence as possible. And that's a fiduciary responsibility. And God love them, they take it very seriously. And in many ways, the reverse mortgage flies in the face of that, because we're saying, and I'll say it, I don't care if your children get a lot of money. I want the parents to live the highest quality of life while they're alive. And one of the biggest misinformations and half truths is that children, heirs, are against reverse mortgages. You can read that in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and nothing could be further from the truth. I don't know how they print this stuff. I have children. You have children. I bet you Bill has children. I'd love to ask your children, what matters most to you? The size of your inheritance or mom and dad's quality of life? And I say this all the time in big crowds. If your children say, actually, I don't really care how mom and dad live, I want that damn house. Well, I'm sorry you have mean children. It's probably too late to put them up for adoption. They're in their 40s or 50s, but I'd get rid of them if I were you. People aren't like that. I mean, they really aren't. I've run into a couple in 20 years, too. But my own children, I have 3 of them, have said, Dad, I don't have a reverse mortgage on my present house, but on my next house I will, because it'll be my last house. And they don't care how much I leave them. They want me to go on trips with them. They want me to drive the car I want to drive. They want me to help them when I need that, which is another big thing about reverse mortgages the last several years. everybody would be so surprised when somebody calls up and I'm talking to them and I go, oh my God, you have a few $100,000 in this money market and 500,000 in your portfolio. Why are you getting a $300,000 reverse mortgage? I just have to ask. You don't need it. Oh, Michael, we have 3 grandchildren that have close to $100,000 each in student debt. It is strangling them. They can't afford to buy a house because with that debt, they don't qualify. It's just killing them. And in my will, I'm leaving them each $100,000. But I'm not going to be dead for 20 years. So I talked to my financial planner. We're going to do a reverse mortgage so it won't affect my assets, so my wife and I can live well. And I'm going to give them $100,000 each now while I'm alive. Well, I can get a hug and a kiss and a thank you. You'd be surprised how many reverse mortgages are done to help their children and grandchildren in this crazy economic environment that we live in.
The other thing that you briefly mentioned is when you buy a new house, if you're the price of houses nowadays are crazy. So you can sell your house where you are, but maybe where you're going to retire might cost more. You could actually purchase
Yes.
that house with a reverse mortgage from the get-go and never have to make a payment, correct?
Yes, I have taught classes all over the country, specifically here in Florida, but in about 20 states to real estate agents on what is referred to as the purchase reverse mortgage. And the scenario that you just brought up is the exact scenario that is happening in every real estate company in every state in the country. Somebody's going, let's take Florida, the retirement capital of the country. Somebody moves down here and they're talking to their realtor and they go, I just sold my house in Pennsylvania and I have 500,000 cash, the most money they've ever had. And my financial planner or my son or my daughter wants me to pay cash for a house. And so I have no payment during retirement. And I want to live near or on a golf course. And I want to have lots of trees. I don't want one of those. And I want extra bedrooms for the grandchildren to come down and a pool. And the real estate agent, like I said, here in Florida or any beautiful city in this country is looking at them and going, I hate to tell you, but 500,000 isn't enough for what you want. And I never thought those words would come out of my mouth 10 or 15 years ago. If they are 62 and above and they have good credit, they can take that 500,000 and buy a $700,000 house, 500 down, 200 from a reverse mortgage lender, have the retirement home of their dreams, and still not be obligated for a principal and interest payment for as long as they live in that home. They have to pay their taxes and insurance, but no principal and interest payment.
Right.
So yes, the purchase reverse mortgage is making a lot of dreams come true.
Yeah. Or even on the other side, if you want to keep some of that liquidity from that 500,000, maybe you don't need that big of a house. I'm looking for a tiny house personally in retirement. I think my retirement house is going to cost like $54,000 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be on wheels and I'll travel because, I'm all about Betty. But so just because we don't have a whole lot of time left, there have been changes into the reverse mortgage rules and all of that. So we're not going to get into a whole lot of that today because I want you to talk a little bit about your show, 62 Who Knew.
Yep.
And because people can tune in to your show and learn more about what we're talking about today. So talk to us a little bit about 62 Who Knew.
All right. 62 Who Knew came about when I was reading articles. Everybody thought when I was going to do the show and the podcast, that, it's 62. You have to be 62 to get a reverse mortgage. If that's Mike Banner, it must be a show about reverse mortgages. And it's not. We bring up reverse mortgages. 62 Who Knew is a podcast / television show about the double-edged sword of longer lifespans. In the last 20 to 30 years, scientific breakthroughs, medical breakthroughs have just been astronomical. When our parents and our grandparents, wanted to retire in their early 60s, they would plan to live another 10 or 12 years. In today's world, if you live into your early to mid 60s, you have a 50-50 chance of making it to 90. So who knew at 62, you still had 30 years? That's half the time you've been on this planet to go. And in today's, again, not trying to get political on either side, crazy environment where everything is so expensive, literally 2% of our country can afford to retire in their early to mid 60s and live another 30 years. I mean, who has 30 years cash reserve in the bank? The other 98% of us are working. And we're thinking, well, how do we get a lifestyle like my rich cousin or the guy you read about, in the newspaper? How do we have the best long-term care insurance that money can buy? How do we have trips and things? We've worked 30, 40 years. We deserve that. That's what 62 Who Knew is about. I bring on the top professionals in the long-term care insurance world, the top professionals in the in-home care world, Medicare, Medicare supplemental, Medicare experts, Medicaid. Yes, Medicaid helps a tremendous amount of people. I bring on psychologists who talk, and this is kind of amazing because I've seen my older relatives, not that I have many older relatives left at my age, but I've seen this where they couldn't wait to retire, play golf, play pickleball, do whatever they do. But after a couple of years, they're like, I really can't play that much more golf or pickleball or tennis. They're used to getting up and doing something. And the psychology of not having anything to do hurts because suddenly you start eating more and you start gaining weight and you start getting depressed. The authors that I brought on that topic were amazing to me. I brought on an author of a book that talked about caretakers in the family. We don't need long-term care insurance. I'm going to take care of mom and dad. And usually that's the daughter. Not that there's anything wrong with sons. That's usually the daughter. I was the caretaker for my father the last 18 months of his life. But when a woman, who's usually the biggest heart of the couple, takes time off her job and takes care of mom or dad or her husband's mom or dad for X amount of years and then goes back to the workforce, do you know how much that incredible mom and wife suffered with not making contributions to their IRA or their 401k? And now it's 20 years later, and the husband has hundreds of thousands in their 401k, and the wife has X amount less. Why? You took off 7 years to take care of the family. That astounded me when I brought that author on how women being such great caretakers can affect their retirement at 62. Who knew? And other topics like that. So that's what the 62 Who Knew podcast and television show is. It's about us regular people getting to 90 in a high quality of life.
Wonderful. And it is a good show. I will be sure that we put the links because the internet show or the TV show is actually on the internet. So you can go to the link, you can watch the show. The podcast is a lot like ours. You can listen to it, you can watch it, whatever it is that works for you. But before we close up, we've covered a lot of ground on this podcast today. Thank you, Michael, for all this information.
Thank you very much.
But before we go, I want to say you and I had something in common when we first met, and that was the books that we wrote about our stories with our parents. Mine was with my mom, and yours was with your father. Tell us really quickly, we have about 5 minutes left, if that. Tell us about your book, A Gift from My Father.
Yes, thank you. This is it. And it's on Amazon, everybody, in electronic form or regular. Well, like we were talking, the three of us before the show, I'm not as prolific as you are. And this book is not as deep as your books. This is a book that'll make you smile. If you're in your 30s or 40s, every page of this book, you'll go, my grandfather said that. If you're in your 50s or 60s, you'll say, my father said that. This is approximately 50 cliches that the greatest generation, and that's the generation our parents were in, brought me up with. But they brought you up with that too. We talked about a few of them. That when you shake someone's hand, you don't have to break their hand, but it better be a firm handshake. Firm handshake means firm convictions. When you're talking to someone, look them in the eye. If a man is talking to you or a woman and they're not looking you in the eye, my father would look at me when I'm 10 years old and go, then they're lying. You know, there's a lot of things. It's cliches. And then I kind of make a sarcastic comment under this cliche, how today's generation is not quite keeping up to the quality of life and the morals and the ethics of the greatest generation. And in our last minute, I want to say, because I know you have a lot of listeners, to the younger people, you know, a lot of today's generation and the generation before this, they think the greatest generation is a nickname. It's not a nickname. They were the greatest generation. They enlisted. They didn't have to be drafted, even though there was a draft. They enlisted in World War II in mass to go save the world from Germany and Hitler. And many of them went to the Pacific, the South Pacific, to save us from what was referred to then as the evil empire of Japan after the infamous December 7th attack. They went, they saved the world. They just didn't save America. They saved the world along with our allies. They came home victorious in 1945. And did they put their feet up on a stool and go, okay, we're in our 20s. We saved the planet. I think that's enough for us. No, they didn't. They became the entrepreneurs before that word was popular, the governors, the mayors, the police, the detectives, even the politicians that made this country what it is. I mean, the man that broke the speed of sound, greatest generation. The first man to orbit the Earth, although he was Russian, greatest generation. The first
Although
man
he
to
was
walk
Russian.
on the moon, greatest generation. First man to do a kidney transplant, first doctor, greatest generation. Heart transplant, the doctor, greatest generation. If your listeners Google greatest generation accomplishments, it's screen after screen after screen. So
Right.
the book shows all those good habits. And like I said, I wish a lot of the younger generation think those good habits right now are corny. They're not corny. They're what built America. And I wish we could, on both sides of the aisle, because you know I don't get political, to everyone, let's bring back some of our grandparents' morals and ethics. I think we'll be doing a lot better if we could do that.
I think as we grow older, we tend to appreciate all of that a little bit more. So maybe some of these younger generations, as they age, they will also appreciate. So all they have to do is buy your book.
Yeah, that's all they have. Yeah.
And they can learn even more, or
Yes.
Or anyone can buy your book and read it to their kids, right?
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many people are doing that. And then I'm having kids, not kids, you know, to me, everybody's a kid at this age, but people in their 20s and 30s, I get emails. Mike, we bought the book. It reminds us of our grandfather. It made us smile. A lot of young women have looked at the book and went, damn, I wish I could find a boyfriend that lived by these rules. You know, because a real man opens a door for a woman.
Right.
That's what a man does.
Right. Well, hey, Mike, I'm so sorry that we are out of time. We could sit here and chat all day, which we probably should one of these days. I need to
We will
buzz down to Florida and we can sit and have coffee and lunch and dinner.
And you're going to come on 62 Who Knew soon. So we'll
that sounds like a lot of fun. I'd be happy to. So, Bill, any last words or questions from your side?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't have anything to add. I just really enjoyed meeting you, Michael, and listening to this conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Carol, what struck me about the conversation, and I wrote a note down saying complimentary podcast. It's really, your two podcasts are complementary to each other. And so people who find your podcast interesting might, in fact, find Michael's, and people who find Michael's podcast interesting might, in fact, find value and worth in listening to JubilAge. So it was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Carol, for introducing us to Michael. For those of you who are listening to the podcast who are not subscribers, I don't know why you're not. You can become one pretty easy. All you have to do is reach out and hit follow, subscribe. The advantage to that is that when Carol drops new episodes, you're notified. You can listen to it. You don't have to wonder about how often does she do this, or where did I hear it? You're notified. Give it a listen. And I would add, if you like it, tell people about it. Word of mouth promotion is very much appreciated. All right, Carol, until next time, what have you got to say to take us home?
You know, our job here at JubilAge is guiding advisors and inspiring seniors. So hopefully we had some advisors here who got some new ideas, and I really hope we inspired some seniors. Thanks again, Michael.
Thank you for tuning in to JubilAge, where we celebrate the joy of aging and explore the financial wisdom to thrive in every stage of life. We hope you found today's conversation insightful. Whether you're a financial advisor looking to better serve your senior clients or someone embracing the journey of aging. Remember, aging is a privilege, and with the right knowledge and perspective, it can be a vibrant, fulfilling experience. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share JubilAge with others who could benefit from our discussions. Until next time, keep living, keep learning, and keep celebrating every moment. Stay jubilant.